Hello and welcome, my name is NOVARIS and today I'd like to speak to you about the Magicka Nightblade build for the Dragonbones DLC. This is a bit later than I'd expected to make the video. It's from some personal issues, but as a consequence I've been able to do a lot less testing. The 6mm dummy parse I will include in a separate video if that's requested, but for now I've just got two 3mm parses. One with a 3-bow proc rotation and the second with, or the first with the 2-bow proc rotation. So that's just to give you a variety for the rotations. You will get slightly more DPS if you do the 3-bow proc rotation over a longer DPS parse. It's not very clear in short parses, but it will be clearer in a trial, for example. So there's a couple things I want to go over in this video, and the first thing again is just to mention that my health is quite low again. It's only 15.7k health. I've actually found recently that this is enough health for me, but it might not be enough health for some people, so you might want to put a health glyph on one of the armor pieces, and if you've got loads of synergies and you're able to sustain properly, you could also run max health, max Magicka foot. The other alternative again is to move some attribute points from Magicka into health. If you do that, I'd suggest maybe moving about 8 points into health and you should be good to go. So there's a couple things as well about this build that I want to mention. I'll talk about that a bit later, but first of all I want to show you the DPS parses. I then want to go over the gear setup, skill points, champion points, and then finally I'll go over the rotation. So I hope you enjoy. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about the gear setup. At the moment I'm front barring an Inferno staff of Mechanical Acuity with a flame damage enchantment and an infused trait. I front bar it just so that I only get the proc when I'm on the front bar. On the back bar I'm running Maelstrom's Inferno staff with an infused trait and a beserker enchantment. This is to get more damage on our light and heavy attacks when we put down Wall of Elements. I'm actually running 5 pieces of Master Architect and 5 pieces of Mechanical Acuity. I'm running 5 light, 1 heavy, 1 medium. And as you can see, the 5th piece bonus is very strong for Master Architect, giving us 15% more damage, so it's Major Slayer when we activate an ultimate. We have spell damage enchantments on all the jewellery and Magicka enchantments on all the gear. Okay, so let's talk about the skills. So in the front bar we have the Mechanical Acuity staff, and that completes the 5th piece bonus. That's because we want the 100% crit to be active for all of our single target damage attacks. That's where most of the damage comes from. So on the front bar we're running Crippling Grasp, which is a very high damage single target damage dot. It does 17k magic damage for 8 seconds, and that's before any damage modifiers. It's a siphoning ability, which means we get 8% more maximum magicka just from having it slotted. But what you might want to do as well if you're doing a different rotation is to swap Twisting Path with Crippling Grasp. Especially if you're running a Nirn on back bar, you'd have Crippling Grasp here just because when you bar swap it, it retains the trait. We have Merciless Resolve, which gives us minor berserk. That's 8% more damage to all of our attacks. And every time we do 5 light or heavy attacks, we get access to a Spectral Bow, which is a very strong source of damage for the Nightblade. We have Swallow Soul here, and that's because I'm predominantly doing solo content at the moment on the Nightblade, but you would want to run funnel health for trials. So the main benefit for having this skill slotted is it's very cheap. It's quite high damage as well, but because it's so cheap we can use other skills that are more costly. So at the moment I'm also running Impale. From 25% health or below, you want to be using this instead of funnel health as a spammable, because it does 300% more damage at that point. It's also a very cheap skill. And also something I should mention is it's an assassination ability. You want to have one on both bars preferably, and that gives you more critical damage just having that slotted. We have Inner Light here, which when you slot it, it gives you 5% more maximum magicka, but also passively you get 2% more from the Magicka controller passive. I'm using the Fiery Rage ultimate, and the reason I'm using that on front bar is because you need to have 2 destruction staff attacks or skills, sorry, slotted on both bars to get access to the Ancient Knowledge passive. So that gives you 8% more damage to all of the single target damage attacks, which is the real strength behind Magicka Nightblade. On the back bar, the destruction staff ability I'm using is Blockade of Fire. So you have Twisting Path as your AoE on back bar. You have Blockade of Fire, which works very well with your Maelstrom Arena staff. You get 20% more damage when an enemy is burning as well, just for that ability. I'm running Elemental Drain here to give me minor magicka steal, and that's for testing purposes, but if you were to be doing any other content, you would swap this for a shield, which I would use dampen magicka at the moment. So I'm using Siphoning attacks as well, mainly for sustain. This is quite a long skill as well, but you want to let it play out. After that 20 seconds you'll get access to a lot more magic. So we double bar Inner Light, and then finally we have Soul Harvest, which is another assassination ability, so we get the Hemorrhage passive bonus. Okay, so at the moment I'm finding the best results with 56 Elfborn, 56 Elemental Expert and 22 Erosion, 66 into Master Arms and 40 into Thaumaturge. I've actually found it a lot stronger than using 75 points into Thaumaturge this patch, unlike the Sorcerer. So most of our damage is going to be coming from the bow procs, so we want a lot more into Master at Arms in this case. Okay, so now we're on to the rotation section of the video. I've posted up the more simple of the rotations because it does have a formulaic layout, whereas the other rotations, the 3 bow proc rotation or the 3-4 bow proc rotations, don't so much as follow a rotation. They are reactive, so you do need to be more familiar with Magicka Nightblade before you attempt to do those rotations. So let's go right into the rotation itself. So at the start, I reapply my buffs, the siphoning attacks and elemental drain. I put down my AoEs and then spend as much time on the front bar as possible. Every 5th light attack I use the bow proc, spectral bow, and every time that the elemental drain is about to run out, I reapply it. So the most important thing to notice here as well is that in comparison to the 3 bow proc rotation, I'm on the back bar over a longer duration. We don't actually want that in trials as much as possible. You want to be on front bar, and if you ever do go to back bar, you want to be applying about 1 skill. So you could do your Blockade of Fire and then go back to your front bar, do funnel health, and then go back to your back bar and use your Crippling Grasp or Twisting Path depending on what you have. But as soon as we get to around 25% or below, we need to start using the spammable Impale. That's because it does significantly more damage than any other skill at that point. But we also do want to keep our Merciless Resolve up, so we get the 8% more damage on that attack.